Welcome everybody for yet another edition. Welcome back from spring break. A couple of housekeeping things I want to mention before we get going talking about our first paper. That's part of Rough Draft Week. And that is, one, the grades have been posted. You should see them in links to the email that I sent you today. Make sure that you check those and that everything is up to date. I have graded everything I have, so if there's something that comes up as missing, then there's a good chance then there's been some oversight. You can contact me through email or through calling me on the phone. My number's on the syllabus. So that's the first order of business. The second thing that I want to mention is that this week for rough drafts, you can send me your rough draft in various different states of completion at any time, and I encourage you to do one. I don't give points for it, of course, because I don't want to force you to do it. I want you to have this internal motivation to do it on your own without having points dangling over you in order for you to be incentivized to do something. In any case, I'll be glad to do that and get back to you. Remember that the final draft for the research paper is due next Thursday, April 16th, and that's an important date because typically how people do on that research paper is how they do in the class. And then starting next week, we will begin to go over identity. And although that will be broken down into 4 different sections, each section for each day, Tuesday, Thursday, and then finally we'll do, after 4 sections, we'll do our rough draft week, and then final drafts are due after that. Then we have essentially mop-up time and the final, and we're done. So the class is kind of heavily backloaded here. These last 5 weeks, there's a lot of points still out there. As I mentioned, there's 335 in the bank. There's over 390 still to go. So there's time to make up. There's also time to drop the ball if you all of a sudden find yourself, not feeling up to the charge of pushing to the last, to the finish line. So that's that. Let's talk about what we have today. I'm going to talk about the paper that I sent along here on LangLang. As you well know, he is somebody, I've mentioned this paper before. It's one that I'm kind of happy to go over in the respect that, it's an interesting topic and it's a paper that's been pretty good. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly touch on the various different paragraphs that we have here going over this so that you get a sense of what I think is going on most of the time. First paragraph, of course, is the intro paragraph, and basically gives you a long list of kudos and awards and other things that LangLang has achieved. And then towards the end, you'll notice there's that line that says, looking back at his path to these great achievements, his success is due to his external factor from 10,000 hours of practicing. So there's our first criteria, 10,000 hours of practicing. Person probably could have said practicing piano, right? Although that's pretty much understood in LangLang's case. In other people's cases, you might not necessarily have, you might have the person practicing at something that eventually they become distantly related or somewhat related to the thing that they become famous for. And then going on in that sentence, and advantageous era of his birth, which is right after the Cultural Revolution and one-child policy in the 1980s. Notice what the person did here. Not only did they make reference to the Gladwell category, okay, but they also were able to talk about what in the person's life corresponded to that particular category. So that's an important thing to consider here, is not only mention Gladwell's category, but the thing that corresponds in the person's life. Okay? So moving on in the next paragraph, we have basically the background paragraph, and in that paragraph you see there's another whole list of things that LangLang has done. He's, it's an easy paper to write in some respects on LangLang because he's got so many achievements and so many great things that he's accomplished. So this person essentially just lines them all up and lets that stand as the background paragraph. Then after that, you see the next paragraph. All right, when LangLang when LangLang did to make himself successful is highly relevant to the 10,000 hours mentioned in Outliers. Okay, so that's that first sentence there. That's a topic sentence that tells you, we're going to be talking about 10,000 hours. And the person's done some terrific research to talk about LangLang's practice. You took this section right here in the middle from the autobiography that you see listed down at the bottom. So the person did some good research there. And then it just proceeds, essentially, this section is quite simple, to go through and talk about all the things he did in a chronological order from the time he was very young, 4 or 5 years old, until the time he reaches the conservatory. It gives a list of his kind of practice regimen. So that's exactly what you want to establish for the 10,000 hours. Going further then is the paragraph on the advantageous era, and as it mentions, there's kind of a couple of things that are associated with the advantageous era here. One is that he was born after the Cultural Revolution, okay, and this is a period of time in China, essentially, when Mao Zedong has a very strong, control over people's lives, and he's going to bring China into the modern age by making it more technologically efficient, and as a result, he's getting rid of a lot of the outside influences that might be a distraction to that particular goal. It's a period in time which, for people in Chinese history, they look at it as a particularly horrendous time for the most part. In any case, LangLang's father is one that gets caught up in that, and as a result, he can't pursue his dreams. This helps to influence the way that he raises his son LangLang after that. So you have that going on with the Cultural Revolution, after the Cultural Revolution. And the other aspect of the advantageous era is the one-child era, one-child policy era, where the Chinese, because of a population explosion, were only allowed one child. So as the author makes the case for that entailed LangLang's parents to really pay close and strict attention to LangLang. So that whole section goes through those 2 points, and quite honestly, it's a pretty long paragraph and probably should have been broken in the part that says, in 1979, alarmed by population growth, the Chinese government initiated a one-child policy. Person starts to talk about a different idea there. So this probably should have been broken into 2 paragraphs. That's my one quibble with this paper. But it was chunking all of the material in the advantageous era of birth together in one section. I think if you've got subcategories like this one has, where it's the Cultural Revolution, born after that, and one-child policy, you can break those down. But again, you need to signal those in a topic statement of some sort or some nature. So that's all that paragraph does. There's a lot of really great and interesting information about the influence of those 2 different cultural effects. And then finally, in the conclusion, it says, basically sums up LangLang's influence on the classical music world, and it comes up a little bit short in terms of, providing any kind of specific, idea for what LangLang did that might make him a useful model to improve the capitalization rate. But you know, the paper in itself is was very well researched, and despite the fact that it came up a little bit short in that area, I still think it's a good example, even though it kind of falls short in that area too a little bit. It does have a conclusion, does summarize its main points, so in that regard it does the main things a conclusion does, but it really kind of didn't take us out into thinking about the capitalization rate. In any case, you see the works cited down below. Everything is done pretty much according to the way it should be done, so that's a good model for you to follow. And apart from that, you know, that's what this paper is about. I think it's a good one to look at and use as a model, as well as I think it's very interesting to look at the different cultural influences and what made Lang Lang. In particular, the incredibly hard work that his father encouraged him to take on. And apart from, the thing that's interesting to me about this story is that, you know, Lang Lang, instead of getting upset or irritated with his father who drove him to such, you know, really almost abusive lengths, you know, Lang Lang, as you can see at the end, is really very thankful for his father that he did this kind of thing. And he says, I now have to live up to their expectations. Wow, I can't imagine too many American kids thinking that they have to live up to their parents' expectations, particularly when they were so harsh and so strict, and so, you know, idealized as well. In any case, it's an interesting topic. I hope you enjoy the paper. If you have any questions, call me, email me, and I'll do another one of these on Thursday. Take care.